guys, I'm Kashalita Victoria Wono. In this video, I will present the findings and discussion section from the article that I choose. The title is Research Article Introduction in Applied Linguistics, a comparative study on the use of appeals by Arianto, published in 2023. So let's start the presentation. Now that we have discussed the methods, let us move on to the findings. The results focus on how authors of applied linguistic research articles introduce their studies, especially the strategies they use to claim that their research is important. The analysis is divided into two main parts. The first, we look at the overall use of appeals in research article introduction. Then we compare how these appeals are used across the three author groups: English L1 authors, English as a foreign language, and Indonesian L1 authors. After that, we will explore the four main types of appeals in detail: silence, magnitude, topicality, and problematicity. Okay, the first finding shows that all three groups of authors use appeals in their introduction, but with different level of frequency. Appeals are important because they are rhetorical strategies to convince readers that the topic is worth studying. For example, English L1 authors use appeals more frequently and strategically, showing their mastery of how to present an international academic audience. English FL authors also use appeals, but their frequency and variety were slightly lower, suggesting some influence of local writing practice. Meanwhile, Indonesian L1 authors relied on appeals the least, which reflect a more modest rhetorical style often found in local publications. These results suggest that cultural and linguistic background plays a strong role in how authors frame the importance of their research. Now move to differences across the three groups. When we compare the three groups directly, clear differences emerge. English L1 authors stand out for their consistent use of multiple appeals within a single introduction. This makes their arguments sound stronger and more convincing. And Indonesian authors writing in English or the English FL are in the middle. They try to follow international standards but still show influence from Indonesian rhetorical tradition. On the other hand, Indonesian L1 authors who write in Bahasa Indonesia use appeals more sparingly and often focus on describing rather than persuading. This finding is important because it shows how writing conventions are not only about language but also about culture and audience expectation. Okay, now let's talk the first type of appeal. Is the appeal to silence, which highlights the relevance or visibility of a research topic. For instance, authors might say that a topic is currently receiving a lot of attention worldwide. In this study, English L1 authors use this appeal most frequently, making their introduction sound timely and connected to global database. English FL authors also use it, but not as strongly. Indonesian L1 authors use it the least, often focusing more on local context. This suggests that when writing for an international audience, stressing silence can help the research appear more globally relevant. Now we move to the second type of appeal, is the appeal to magnitude, where authors emphasize the scale or seriousness of the issue. For example, they might point out how many people are affected by the problem or how widespread it is. Again, English L1 authors employ this appeal effectively, often using numbers, statistics, and large-scale implications. And English FL authors use it too, but sometimes with less detail. And Indonesian L1 authors, however, rarely use magnitude appeals, possibly because local academic writing tradition emphasizes explanation rather than persuasion. This finding shows that using magnitude appeals can help to make a research problem sound bigger and therefore more urgent. Okay, what's now? In the third type of appeal is the appeal to topicality. This is when authors claim that their research is relevant because it relates to ongoing issue, database, or current discussion in the field. English L1 authors excelled here by connecting their topics to global or disciplinary discussions. And English FL authors did use this appeal, but usually by referring to national level issue rather than global ones. And Indonesian L1 authors made even less use of topicality, often focusing instead on describing the background of the research area without linking it to a large conversation. This shows that connecting research to ongoing debates is a key way to make a study appear significant in international journals. Okay, finally, the last type of appeal is the appeal to problematicity. This is when authors highlight that there is a problem, a gap, or a challenge that needs to be solved. Interestingly, this was used quite widely across all three groups because pointing out a research gap is a common academic practice. However, English L1 authors tend to state the problem more explicitly and link it to previous studies. English FL and Indonesian L1 authors often state problems in a more general way, without fully showing how serious or urgent they were. This finding suggests that while problematicity is a universal appeal, the strength of its use differs across cultural contexts. Okay, to summarize the results, all authors use appeals, but English L1 authors use them most strategically. English FL authors show a mix of local and international practice, and Indonesian L1 authors tend to use fewer appeals overall. The detailed analysis of silence, magnitude, topicality, and problematicity shows us how cultural and linguistic backgrounds shape the way research is introduced. These findings are important because they remind us that academic writing is not neutral. It reflects the convention, expectation, and rhetorical tradition of different communities. So that's all from my presentation. I apologize if there's a lot of mistake and thank you for watching. See you.